Tom, who is leading, I mean, in an incredibly great way, I got to say, with much admiration, breaking stories, the issue of health freedom, political freedom. Wherever there is something important to be dug up, Mike is there. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hi there, John. Thanks for having me back on. We've got a lot coming up this hour. And I got to say, you know, look, we are all just info warriors, really, if you think about it. It's people like you and I. It's Alex Jones, the tip of the spear. We're all fighting for truth, for justice, for real liberty out there. I mean, it's just what we do. And I kind of agree with Alex. We don't want to be patted on the back for it. We just want people to wake up and take action on what we're talking about. So with that said, let's move right into the issue. Are you cool, John?
I wanted to just finish up this little piece that I was talking about, the CIA spying on people now through smart appliances in their homes, where toasters and refrigerators and stoves and ovens and so on are going to be connected up to the internet in a way that will allow you to be spied on in your homes. I mean, it's completely insane. I don't think we need to get into that. But the thing that interested me in the story was that Petraeus, who is, head of the CIA, was talking about this at a conference of In-Q-Tel. In-Q-Tel is an investment company, actually illegal investment company, owned by the CIA. What's the government doing in owning companies? But anyway, it owns In-Q-Tel, and they finance all sorts of companies, like IT companies in Silicon Valley, to come up with new developments that the CIA then can use. And In-Q-Tel is coming up with these smart appliances. Well, a guy named Buzzy Krongard was instrumental for creating In-Q-Tel, along with George Tenet of the CIA. And Buzzy Krongard was, in fact, the head of Alex Brown, one of the biggest investment banker houses in the country, that was discovered in a San Francisco Chronicle article to have been one of those outfits that was trading stock precipitously in American Airlines just before 9/11. So that's following something down the rabbit hole. Just thought you might want to know. So, Mike, let's jump in and give us your top issue of the day.
Well, hey, these, commenting on what you just said there, these ties are always very deep on every issue. Look at the TSA. Look who's making money from the selling of the naked body scanners. Follow the money. Who benefits from the propaganda? Who benefits from the deception? It's always these people in power, sort of buddies of the White House, regardless of who's in the White House, whether it's Bush or Obama or Clinton or whoever. I mean, look at the failure of the green solar companies. These are people who were buddies of Obama, who took hundreds of millions of dollars in government grant money, paid themselves huge fat salaries as CEOs, never produced a product, never produced a service, and then went bankrupt. It's just another form of government theft. It's just like John Corzine. It's just like the bankster bailouts of Goldman Sachs. It's just theft at every single level. And the one thing all these thefts have in common is they're all close buddies with the White House.
Indeed, they are. And organizations like the Trilateral Commission and, of course, the Council on Foreign Relations, headquartered in New York, created in 1920, these are a couple of the elite crony, buddy, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, old boys clubs where all of this theft is planned and takes place. And interestingly, both of these organizations, Trilateral Commission and CFR, go back to the Rockefeller monopoly.
And at the same time that all of these thefts are taking place, the regular people, the people working for a living who are breaking their backs to try to get ahead, their money keeps getting stolen from them, and they're prosecuted for crimes like selling raw milk. So there's this two-tiered system where regular everyday people can't get ahead. They're criminalized for everything, where meanwhile the real criminals in Washington run free and steal everything.
We got to go to a break. We're going to cover this awesome right after this. Jon Rappoport for Alex Jones. We're in for Alex Jones today on the Alex Jones Show with Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. Okay, Mike, the Rawsome story. This is, we were talking before the break, a perfect illustration of how the little guy gets screwed. The hard-working person who's trying to do something good for himself, his family, and other people is getting completely demolished. So go for it.
We've got a lot of inside information here. Let me brief you all on the latest. We thought we might have James Stewart. He's the operator of Rawsome Foods in California, who was raided and arrested at gunpoint last year. We thought we might have him on today, but it turns out he's not available because the Ventura County has him in a 3-day preliminary hearing. It's just a preliminary hearing, but it's taking 3 days. He's being persecuted, charged with 38 felony counts of financial crimes that we have investigated, and it turns out he factually has nothing to do whatsoever with these so-called financial crimes. And if you look at the financial crimes, what are they? Well, Ventura County claims that Sharon Palmer, the owner of Healthy Family Farms, or the original owner, I should say, there are other owners involved, she was unable to repay investors on time because she was paying fines to the county, and she was paying literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees because the county was raiding the farm and throwing her in jail. So the county came in, put her behind schedule on paying back the investors, and then they charged her with felony crimes of defrauding the investors because she was late repaying them, which the county caused.
Wow.
So here's a case of the state putting you in a position that then they call criminality and then charging you with 38 felony crimes. Now, compare this, John, with what has happened to John Corzine of MF Global, who stole billions of dollars from farmers all across America who had invested in that fund to try to reduce their risk as they grow crops. You know, farmers invest in crop futures to reduce their risk of crop failures and so on. And nothing has happened to him. No prosecutions, no indictments,
we don't know
no
where the
court
money
cases.
is. We just don't know where the money is, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
we don't know where the money is. I apologize. I have a little bit of difficulty hearing you come in when I'm talking, but it's a case of selective prosecution and selective criminalization of individual farmers, while the big, rich, fat cats get away with massive theft once again.
Now, James Stewart of Rawsome, I mean, this is just an incredible story to me. The guy is selling raw milk. His customers are happy. They love the milk. He keeps selling them the milk. All of a sudden, he gets raided. Now, from what you're saying, is it true that they're not now charging him with selling raw milk or contaminated milk, that all of these charges are, quote, about financial crimes?
It is both, John. They're still charging him with, quote, selling unpasteurized milk, which he wasn't even doing. He actually didn't even run a retail store. It was a private buyers club, a co-op. Everybody was a partial owner of a cow and of a farm, and they were merely picking up the milk they already owned. It's basic contract law under common law. But California has attacked that and said that that's not valid under their state laws. But now they've added on the financial crimes on top of that. And remember, Ventura County arrested him when he was in court a couple of weeks ago, and then they tortured him in the LA County prison, the LA County jail. It's called, I believe the name of this jail, believe it or not, is called Twin Towers. I believe that's the name of it, and there's probably a bit of irony in that.
For it in downtown LA. I've been there.
Downtown LA. And they subjected him to starvation, to hypothermia. They shackled him with chains 3 or 4 times around his waist. They subjected him to medical procedures without his permission. And he nearly died of hypothermia, shivering in isolation in a cell. And he was lost in the system for 8 days. This is the way they treat farmers in America today. This is what's happening to James Stewart. We've documented it, and more on this is coming out. And we will be sharing that documentation with Kurt Nimmo, Alex Jones, Paul Joseph Watson, and the whole team there at InfoWars.
Yeah, I'm looking for stories to keep on showing up on this. And, you know, the other thing, of course, that James said was that in the final hours at the LA County Jail, somebody in that cell block, that area, released horrendous sewage that came flooding into the cells, an inch or 2 deep on the floors in the cells, that contained feces and other horrendous material. And his shirt was there. I mean, he was already freezing, and he was given a filthy mop and told, to clean it up himself.
Yes.
I mean, this is just unbelievable.
Well, think about the irony, the sick, almost pathetic, devilish irony of all this. The state is charging him with crimes for selling milk with living bacteria, which we call probiotics. It's good for you, but the state says it's unsanitary, therefore you're a criminal. And what do? They throw him in a jail where they flood his jail cell with raw sewage, which of course is heavily contaminated with dangerous and deadly pathogens, and they say this is justice. This is what the state says. And they did make him clean out his own cell of raw sewage by hand. They actually gave him a small squeegee, and then after he had squeegeed out the raw sewage out of his jail cell, they then left him in that cell for another 30 plus hours. And I also confirmed this story with a former LA cop. I don't want to release his name yet, but he confirmed with me that this is not only happening, that this is not only a true story, but that this is routine in the LA jail system, John.
I agree. It's routine. James mentioned the other day that he was at a conference where he was able to talk to a few sheriffs from different parts of the country. And he told them that he lived in L.A., told them what had happened to him, and basically one sheriff just said, move.
Yeah.
Move.
I've told him the same thing, actually.
Yeah. This happens. This happens in L.A. This is not just James, but we have to keep in mind that, James was a guy who was arrested for selling healthy milk. Really, I mean, that was why he was arrested. That was why he was raided. That was the genesis of the whole thing. And so this is what he's subjected to. And you're right, it's perfect. It's like saying, okay, so you claim to have milk that's free of contamination with all these organisms, so we're now going to flood you with the most contaminated organisms we can find.
Yeah, and think about how much bail was set in this case, by the way, John. Ventura County slapped him with $1 million in bail, and they slapped Sharon Palmer with $2 million in bail. Now look at how this is selectively applied. Look at the case of the Penn State assistant coaches there who were reportedly involved in child rape and pimping out children for sex favors to wealthy clients in that area. Complete sicko type of perverted behavior. He got off on I think $100,000 bail with no. He didn't even have to back it up with any kind of assets. So an unsecured bail, whereas James Stewart, the milkman, gets $1 million in bail, which is more than you even see for murderers and rapists. So it's very clear that California is really selectively persecuting this individual for their own political reasons, which we could probably get into on a later show. Yeah,
absolutely. So give us your take on these Obama initiatives that have been coming down the pipeline so rapidly of late, and what they spell for America.
Well, I'm going to help our listeners here parse this information. The executive order is called the National Defense Resources Preparedness Order. It was issued on March 16th. Paul Joseph Watson and Alex Jones have covered it, especially on the show yesterday, but there's more to it. We posted a story on this on Natural News last night. It's gone very viral, 10,000 shares on that just this morning. But some people were asking, well, wait a minute, the federal government hasn't seized all the farms and all the food and all the fertilizers. No, they have seized control. They have asserted authority and control over all of these resources. The actual physical seizure will come at a later date. But this executive order does assert control. And I want to explain how that works by parsing the language of this executive order so that everybody understands it. If you look at Section 201 under Part 2, Priorities and Allocations, this word allocations is crucial to understand because it says that this order is designed to, quote, allocate materials, services, and facilities as deemed necessary or appropriate to promote the national defense. And that could mean anything. But if you look at the word allocation, how do you allocate something if you don't have it? So in order for the government to allocate something, it must first confiscate it, John. And that brings me to my first slide right here. Allocation is confiscation. Can you see that? For those of you watching on Prisonplanet.tv, allocation is confiscation.